sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying.
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High King of the universe, your host of all, for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, giving due respect to the leadership of the place, even Chief Prince Yehudah Ben Yissaschar, praying that the Most High God be with him and his family, his household. And I pray that the Most High God be with each and every one of you that are listening to us. Hope that the Most High God has blessed you. Early Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Also, I urge you all to share, like, and subscribe. You subscribe so that and you hit the notification bell so that every time we upload a new video, you will be notified. We thank you all for your continued support to this channel, and we pray that the Creator of heaven and earth will continue to be with each and every one of you. At this time, I'm going to pass it on, and we're going to go over the portion Beshalach. Will be done by none other than one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I give praises to the Supreme Intelligent Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and due respect to the platform more, the D.C.B channel platform, the spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yehudah Ben Yissaschar, to the host, Chief Uzziel, to the Prince's Chief, Rabbinate, Kohanim, Morim, brothers and sisters and visitors to the channel. I greet you all in the tongue of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, and an early Shabbat Shalom. And I'd like to start off with Adonai Septai Ditaku Fiyagiti Latheaka. The Lord opened down my lips, and my mouth should declare their praise. Last time, I speeded up and stopped at 12, the chapter 12 of Exodus, the 29th verse. So, and this week, I'll be highlighting some portions in Beshalach. So, also, the Shabbat that just passed is called Shabbat Shirah, because Beshalach has the song, Shir Hayam, the song, at the sea, and that's actually the first worship service, if you want to call it that, or praise service. You want to call it, if we look at it as a praise service for the whole nation of Israel when we get to the song Shir Hayam. So that's the first time you find them that they're actually praising the Creator together, with jubilation and thanks. And it starts off with one man, Moshe, sang that song. Then the men pick it up. Then Miriam led the women with instruments. So it picked up more and more with a crescendo, similar to when we look at those songs, when we go over Kabbalah Shabbat, each psalm, well, it actually starts from the 93rd psalm, but the ones they normally say for the eve of the Sabbath is actually from the 95th psalm, 90 all the way to the 99. Then they go to the 29th psalm. Then they go to Lecha Dodi. So each thing is like a build up. Then they go for the song for the Shabbat. And those 6 songs represent the 6 days of the week, and plus the Shabbat have its own particular psalm. So I have a lot of interesting things that that's within those 2 particular portions, because from the time of Shemot all the way to the end of Bo, we talk about our liberation in Exodus. So what's interesting is that, and I'm just going to talk, just highlight some points, because I stopped at 12:29. But one of the interesting is, the first Passover, in the 12th chapter, we're told that we're going to have a memorial and everything like that. We also told about a Rosh Chodesh, which I explained last time, which is a month that we deal with. And also we have the day that we actually going to deal with the actual Passover Seder. So what's interesting is that the service entails us getting a lamb, or or one of the goats, and then bringing it in the house on the 10th day of that month, which we find that's called later on Abib within the particular sidra. We also find that when we look at a lot of the interesting points is that normally out of the three types of animals we normally offer up in the sacrifice, which is interesting, concept to consider, and could further discuss it, is that we deal with, lamb, we deal with offering up goat, we deal with offering up a bullock. So those are the three domesticated animals we offer up, as far as the animals, other than, when we talk about, not counting the fowl and stuff, which we do certain things with, and the grain. So what's interesting is that we are told to deal with the lamb on that day first, and then if we don't have lamb, or the goats. So ideal is the lamb, which is one of the meekest animal, on the planet. And what's another thing that's kind of interesting is that those the regular nations look at the astrological period of that time, going into the spring equinox as the month of Aries, which happened to be the ram. And then the next month is, we deal with, Taurus, which, bull. So it's kind of interesting when you look at how the system is where we over here, and how the nations view things, and how the Creator dealt with things. But one of the things we got to look at, and one of the things we got to look at is that when we talk about the particular sacrifice that we're going to have that night, that we get it the 10th of the month, and then we respect it, tie it up inside your house. How many people keep, animals, inside their house? I mean, today it's kind of popular. People keep dogs, all kind, you name it, they got it in their house today. But back then, in ancient times, where you reside, you usually keep the animal in the house. Most people that's close to my age bracket and older, when they live in the South, the dog didn't come in the house. The dog had to tough it out outside in the yard. That's why you might see them. The closest thing might be on the porch. They make them a dog house. They put a little stake in the ground and a chain, and that's his territory, pretty much. So imagine the uniqueness that you actually now at this particular time bringing, a lamb in the house, and you're gonna have it there for 3 days, and then the fourth day, you actually slaughtering it at a certain time. What's interesting is that when you slaughter it and it's in the house, you say, well, okay, you're told how to prepare your food. So you got an interesting thing about how it should be prepared. And then when you're told how it should be prepared, roasted quick, you're told about a dress code. So not only you're told how the dress code is coming with it, you're also told how to eat it quickly, not chew and savor the meat and everything. And so you got the preparation of it, how it should be cooked. And also you have a dress code and an extra utensil in your hand, which is a staff. And then you're also told to eat it quickly. And so when you look at all that, and then the blood that when you slaughter the lamb, which is or an animal, when you slaughter it, is actually put on your doorposts and the two lintels, all right, the upper and the two side posts of your door. So, and that's supposed to be a sign that when God passed by that night, that not only would he pass by that particular night, he will see that, and he won't suffer the destroyer to slay one of us, the children of Israel. So that's an interesting thing. You say, well, okay, a goat used to be a little bit bigger than, a lamb or a sheep, and then a little bit more meaty, a little more vigilant too. And then the bull's a lot more vigilant. That it was a young bullock not to have in the house, but also it'd be more meat wasted. So the quickest way to prepare in that little short window of time is that that particular thing, and starting at a certain time. So you start your cooking at a certain time. So, and you're not supposed to leave any of it until the morning. Anything that's left had to be burned. So with all those criteria in that first Passover, and you're told what is the accessories with this meal, which is the lamb itself, a bitter herb, or whatever you could define as a bitter herb, and also unleavened bread. So that is the gist of everything, at that time. So now that means you're going to be up all night pretty much. You're going to be up all night when you start that late in the day to prepare the meal. And you got to have somewhat of an appetite in order to try to eat as much as you can before the sunrise without wasting, the actual meat. And so looking at all that in this first area here, that that's an ordeal in itself. And then we talk about a memorial of it, but not only we talk when we was before the memorial, I left out. Not only are we supposed to sprinkle the blood on the door, we told what kind of utensil, for lack of a better word, to use, which was a hyssop branch. We told to use that, not our fingers, like a certain ritual, the priest would dip his finger in the blood and, flick it and point, towards a certain direction, and far as the sacrifice. We're not told to do that. We're told to take that and smear it up there on the doorpost. Now, can you imagine? Blood don't, have a unique smell to it, and it would attract a lot of stuff, when you have blood spilt on the ground or anywhere. So, and when it congeal, it's not a pretty sight or a sweet smell. So, imagine all that, and it say so when the Creator see it, and what is interesting, do the Creator need to see that on the doorpost in order to know that you're doing something inside your house? And all this is taking place inside your house, with the barbecue and the roasting and the smoking. That's all deal that night. And then and what's interesting, the Creator Himself, when he attacked Egypt with the plagues, each plague got more and more dynamic. So, and till we got to the final one was the death of the firstborn. And when it got to the final one, what was some of the interesting things that we could think about is that at that particular time, every household had a male. Every household had a male. So some people, like I said before, would think, because Pharaoh was the firstborn, he should have, God kept him alive just to be a testimony. You could use that, as a premise, but in order for him to be Pharaoh, the other Pharaoh had to pass. So now he's a father, and he's not no longer considered a firstborn. It's the firstborn that he has, and it takes you very clear that from the firstborn of Pharaoh. So that means that it wouldn't be a household where it'd be decimated. Well, I'm a firstborn, I got a firstborn, and I got a grandson that's a firstborn of my firstborn. And so all three of us leave at one time. It's not like that. And what's unique is that it's only centered on the males, because the Pharaoh, the original Pharaoh, the one that wanted to kill Moses, only had a proclamation against males, not a proclamation against the females. So it's like even-handed justice in that sense. And we find a couple other analogies here that when Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron at night, and we pick it up from 30. Well, I like to read the 30th verse. And Pharaoh rose up, and it's 30th verse in the 29th chapter for those that want to follow. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise up, get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go and serve the Lord your God as ye have said. Take both your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. That last phrase, and bless me also, what do he mean? Now, we know during the 8th plague, Moses had told Pharaoh he had to send some stuff along with them because they don't know what they might bring. But yet he said, but you even got to have a sacrifice and donate a sacrifice. So you say, well, if you got all the stuff, if Pharaoh would have let him go with everything they wanted the first time, why would Moses say, and you got to give up some stuff? So that's something that brings a lot of controversy, things, that brings about a lot of thoughts. And then when he said, bless me also, what do you mean? That's another thing. Bless me because I'm letting you go and say a blessing on my behalf on your way out, or it's a blessing that you're gone. We used to say in BINAH Zaykin, a visitor is a blessing, either if not in the coming, and it's going. So some people could be a blessing, and if not in their coming, there might be a blessing in their going. So you could, explore that and come up with some, thoughts concerning that area as well. And Egyptians were urging upon people to send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we are all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they asked of the Egyptians jewels of silver, jewels of gold, and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they let them have what they asked, and they despoiled the Egyptians. And then it goes on to say, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot besides children, and a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they was thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victuals. Before I go into this, well, I'm going to finish this before they first, and stop, and just skip on that. Now that the time that the children of Israel dwelt in Egypt for 430 years, and it came to pass at the end of 430 years, even the selfsame day, it came to pass that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It was a night of watching unto the Lord for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This same night is a night of watching unto the Lord for all the children of Israel throughout your generations. I'm going to stop there and just want to highlight some things. One of the things is that we stayed in the territory of Egypt for a good part of more than a week. We're still in the territory of Egypt. That's number one. So when they say, so what do they mean that we left Egypt that night? Since we know for a fact we're still in the territory of Egypt and we haven't left yet. So I'll leave that for discussion so I can move on a little bit, and because there's a lot of other things I want to bring up, especially when I want to focus on the manna, and when I get to Beshalach. And not only that, they had a meeting point. So one other thing that bears a lot of discussion is why later on when they talk about the ritual and memorial of observing the Passover night, that excuse me, that we are told to eat unleavened bread for 7 days. And then later on, the first day is a Holy Convocation, and the 7th day is a Holy Convocation. If we left in haste, I'm just throwing these things out as we go forward. All right. And it was a night of watching. We left Egypt that night, and we left in haste. We still had time to ask for stuff. So we had to pause for a minute and get the stuff we needed, which is part of the command anyway. One final thing I'd like to to discuss is that not only because God said we were supposed to eat manna for 7 days, but how long it takes for dough to become leavening. Now, those that follow the tradition, rabbinic tradition, they say 18 minutes. So let's say if you don't follow the tradition for some strange reason, we know that their dough didn't turn leaven all the time they had some dough. To the cross, Yom Suf, that they, we know that their dough haven't turned to leaven at all. And they said they had their dough on their back, and they traveling with it, and they ate unleavened stuff out that same dough. They didn't have any other flour. They just had the dough on their back. They had no other rituals. So to consider those things there, as as we reach the Passover Seder, there's other things I would bring out when we get to that season. But what is interesting is that the miracle is that same dough didn't become leaven, and most of us may not pay attention to that area there, that dough there that they had already mixed into a dough, already wrapped up in some material, already on their shoulders, already on the move, and then they were cooked from that, and it haven't turned to leavening. That in itself is a miracle that most of us may not pay attention to. So that's another thing to consider. So when we eat unleavened bread, it's not so much we left Egypt in haste, because we're still in Egypt, but we eat the unleavened bread more so. Besides God telling us, I want to say that because I know people will say, oh, God, the Lord saying that's enough. But the miracle that it stayed unleavened so long, that's the miracle in itself. All right. So now we got the laws of the Passover from the 43rd verse of the 12th chapter, and we have after we go and in 43rd chapter we have a servant or an alien, bringing a stranger, bringing and observing a Passover. So rabbinically, and I just say rabbinically because I might have some people there. They look at a ger as one that's not an Israelite by seed and blood, but he adopted our way of life, or he's brought into a household as a servant. Now, we was the lowest of the servants, at that time in the land of Egypt. But they look at the ger rabbinically as a convert. But here in the Tanakh, that's not the meaning of the word ger. A ger is just somebody that just reside and living in the neighborhood. And he happened to, decide to say, I want to do that. They make a distinction between a nokri and a ger in the book. And so that's one of the premises they use in reference to a convert later on. But a stranger is allowed to observe it. And you say, why would he want to observe Passover? Which, eating lamb that's roasted, not seasoned and everything like that. A night feast, late at night, you're observing that. And you got to eat with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. What is the enjoyment behind that? Because we could think of a banquet that's far more, those have been in many barbecues and cookouts. could think of a far more sumptuous layout than that. So, this is some of the things you could discuss, going forward. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in that area there, but I'll revisit some of it later on. But when we get to the about the stranger, a male, it says, let all males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land. But no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is a homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Thus did all the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. So, like I said before, all those that lived that Pesach night obeyed the Creator. And one of the things is that we find something interesting here is that if you say that he could, once he's circumcised, the stranger circumcised, and it said he should be one that is born in the land, right? So he's circumcised. He's the one that's born in the land, 100% citizenship. But no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. All right, and then it goes on to say, one law shall be for to him that is homeborn. Well, if he's one that's born in the land, why the need to add this other thing? One law, for the homeborn, one law for the stranger. I mean, why add that extra addition? And we could think of some things like in most countries around the world. I'm just going to lay this out, and I'm not going to speak much more on it. But most countries on the world and around the world, usually, when you're born there and you become a citizen, you're American or you're British, no matter what you look like, in Chinese or whatever, Indian from India. So, no matter what you look like. But in the state of Israel, they have a unique thing where you could be a citizen and born in the land, but you do not have a nationality of a Jew. Well, that's the only country where it's just like that, where you could be born, speak fluent Hebrew, that would be your first and only language possibly, and you are, a citizen, so you're afforded all the rights, but you're not considered a national Jew, plus nationality. So that's something you could discuss later on. I just want to point those things out, as related to this particular portion I just read, and see, what thoughts you have concerning those issues there. And I'm gonna skip over to the 13th chapter, and it says, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whatsoever open the womb among the children of Israel, both a man and a beast. It's mine. It's mine." And Moses said unto the people, "Remember this day in which you came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from this place. There shall no leaven be eaten. This day ye go forth in the month of Abib." That's the first time we had a month that was named in the scripture, which was the month of Abib, part of our liberation. Like I said before, part of your liberation is when you able to mark time for yourself. That's part of, one of the liberations of an individual, being able to mark time. Now, you have other things that come up in this particular chapter, and some things I skipped over, but you get the you're gonna find rules for to fill in when you're supposed to bind certain things on your hand, which is the filling, which most people do that follow a certain type of tradition. And the sages and the rabbis extrapolated from that. They say, well, we're not sure what it means. So it's an oral custom or teachings that's passed down that they say it means to tie to filling, stuff like that. Put a little, shell roche on your head, So those are some of the things that they talk about. But I'm just letting you know that they picked that up from here. And also one of the things they pick up here is when they talk about the wicked son. So when you look at the wicked son, they talk about they extrapolate that from the Haggadah here. They don't talk about the wise son. The formula that's mentioned in this particular chapter is for the wicked son. They address the simple son. They address the son too young to answer. But in the Tanakh itself, it doesn't address the wise son. And you say, well, why? Any thoughts on that? So those that might follow a Haggadah when this time comes. We could speak on that a little later on as well when that time comes. Also, one of the things that that we find about redemption, that only one animal they read about that's unclean mentioned here, and that's the donkey, the ass. That the firstborn of that particular animal, you redeem, and if you don't redeem him, then you break his neck. Now you say that's an unclean animal. All right. Do the same apply to horses? Do the same apply to camels? So that's another discussion that we don't have, in the Tanakh, but they have it, in oral interpretation, oral law. So you might want to discuss those different points there, and then you break his neck. That means that if I don't redeem him, I break his neck. He could carry stuff. We could use him to work. They even read later on, it said these should not yoke an oxen and the ass together. But they're able to work, and you could ride them. So it could be a beast of burden as well. So when you look at all those different areas there, then you got to say, okay, well, you have some thoughts on that, and bear some discussion in that. All these things is discussed, by different, sages and stuff like that. But I'm just bringing these up in passing, because just like the 430 years, they say the 430 years might start from Isaac time. All right, but we know for a fact that we only was basically there for 210 years in the land of Egypt. So we got round numbers, we got an estimated number, because we know for a fact that was 603,550 men of war when we got to count in the book of Numbers, but they just say 600,000 here. All right, so those things you just got to go through some examples and discuss amongst your teachers or your colleagues. So I'm gonna go into the book of Beshalach, because there's a couple of things I'm going to focus here. So the central Beshalach means and he sent out, and he sent out. And sent out. All right. It's started from the 13th chapter of Exodus, the 17th verse. And it says, and it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. But God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. But God led the people about by the way of the wilderness, by the Red Sea. It says here, but use Jam Soup. That's the word, which is means seed or reed. So most of your books will say Red Sea, but it's actually seed or reeds in Hebrew. most people is translating the English, that's what they just said, the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up armed, right, out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely remember you, and ye shall carry up my bones away hence with you. And they took their journey from Sukkot and encamped in Ethan in the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them the way, right? To lead them the way. And by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they may go by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night departed not from before the people. Now, which is interesting here, most of the times when we travel, as we find later on in history, after we finally, we crossed the Yam Suf and everything like that, and and we had done the Mishkan, that we followed the cloud. We mostly travel in the daytime, so we didn't travel much at night. When we was in the wilderness, we didn't travel much, at night. We traveled in the daytime. But at this thing was already set that you start off traveling at night, and therefore it ain't like you're gonna have street lights all around, and the Creator, it's giving them a beacon to show where they need to go. And Moses is not sure of the route. He's sure of the destination, but he's not sure of the route that's being taken. So the Creator gave him that information here. And what's interesting is that lest they see war, they're not in the fight. The Creator know the hearts of the individuals there. They coming out looking like warriors. They're coming out orderly. They met up orderly when they left their house. They met up at Ramses. From Ramses, they went to Sukkot. They still in Egypt all this time. And then when we get further down, well, what's interesting though, they're still in Egypt at this particular time. When they say they see war, God told Moses this. He didn't tell the people this. He told Moses this, that they, and he made it sound easy. Lest they see war. Somebody else fighting. They don't want none of that. They don't want to be part of that. They look tough, but they're not tough. They look ready, but they're not ready. And therefore, with all that compliance they had for that night, God said they ain't ready yet. So one of the things, and we have an example of God actually leaving on record in the book of Chronicles, around the 7th chapter, somewhere along the 20th verse, somewhere along there, when it deal with the tribe of Ephraim in the Chronicles, in First Chronicles. And you'll find that the tribe of Ephraim had tried to break out of Egypt, some years earlier. So now, and so Ephraim is actually the third generation from Jacob. You got Joseph, who's the second from Jacob. All right. Then you got Manasseh and Ephraim. All right. Which is the third of generation. So Ephraim's sons, they wind up, and they must have had enough of them too, going back into the land, and you'll find that in the book of Chronicles. And they try to take over some Philistine territory. And one of the major cities you read about in that particular thing in the book of Chronicles, you read about the city of Gath. And I'm sure people will be familiar when we say Goliath. He was the champion of Gath. Now, I'm not saying Goliath lived at that time. What I'm saying is that those Philistines was tough. They was rough. And the Creator said, "Lest they see war." That means there was a war going on, things going on. Even when Jacob was being buried, and they escorted Jacob to the cave of Machpelah, what all those other, kings out there doing? Some would say there might have been a scrimmage going on over territory. And so, when they seen the Egyptians coming, which is a powerhouse, and also they see the procession that's being led and the silent procession of all men, then not only would it look intimidating, but it looked very, very awesome to see, these people moving in regiment to bury our father Jacob and leading them into the cave of Machpelah. So this is when we read about that, we find that sometimes people might act like they're ready. They may act like they're 100% for the cause, but deep down inside, they're not 100% for the cause. And like I said, for those that might want to go to Chronicles, First Chronicles, that's interesting to know, because a lot of people, we read this, for years, and we say, okay, that's heartless, but it's based on an experience. And when you check the names out, those names only exist in the Genesis story, pretty much, and then going later on in the book of Numbers, you find the names and mentioned in Numbers too, a certain name. So we'll move on from there. We find in 14th chapter that Pharaoh's in deep pursuit, and it said, "The Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they turn back and encamp before Paharot, between Migdal and the sea, before Baal Zephon, over against it shall ye encamp by the sea. And Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, They are entangled in the land. The wilderness have shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he shall follow after them. And I will get me honor upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord." And they did so, and it was told the king of Egypt that the people are fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned towards the people. And they said, "What is this we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us?" All right, it ain't just Pharaoh saying, it said they said. All right. And now, and Pharaoh said, and now it's talking about Pharaoh in the 6th verse, in the 14th chapter. "And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots and all the chariots of Egypt and captains over all of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel, for the children of Israel went out with a high hand." They stepping like we got parole, and we got not only we got parole, we got paid off, so we could stroll on out of here. So it's no big thing, no complaint from the time that they left, from the time that they walked around and met up and went to Sukkot, and from the time that the Creator told them to turn back, and then they go back by this idol, and they say they right in the sea right there. So Baal Zephon was one of the idol gods of the Egyptians. Now we know God had say, he destroyed the gods of Egypt. The plagues was to destroy the gods of Egypt, and and also the death of the firstborn. And so what we find here in this instance here is that one idol was like the landmark borderline in one particular area of Egypt. That one wasn't destroyed. So it would look like to the Pharaoh and them, oh wow, all the gods we had in the temples, all the gods I had in the house, all the plagues that came against, the gods was, they was overthrown by them different plagues. But that guy, Baal Zephon, that dude right there, that one there, now we still got a chance. We still have a solid chance now to be able to, to win. And the servants agree with him. And now, since when a leader prepared a chariot? Most people say, pull up my car. Some of us even have a car and say, look, I'll catch me an Uber to go where I want to go. I don't want to drive. All right. So Pharaoh prepared his own chariot. Just like Joseph prepared himself, his chariot to go ahead to meet his father. But Pharaoh prepared his chariot. And then talk about, we had the Haftorah, which is the Haftorah with the song of the boar and Beshalach, which is another song in there, which I'm going to talk about just a little in brief, not much. But when we look at this particular portion here, we find that Pharaoh, if he has 600 chosen chariots, then he has some low, step down. Like I say, you've got Rolls Royces or Lamborghinis. Now you say, okay, I got me a few, Tauruses. I got me a few, maybe any kind of car, Toyotas or Mazdas. But and you're going down. Then I got my cavalry over here, so I got some motorcycle guys going and rolling with me. Then I got some foot guys rolling too as well. So he had 600 chosen. They was the best, and you got men operating the chariots along with you, and then you got the local chariots, which is all those were like the tanks of the time, and then you got the cavalry, and then you got the marching guys, the foot soldiers. All right, so that's a lot of people, and all males and all warriors, trained and expert warriors, and they coming with a vengeance, and they say, what have we done? That means that's not what we really want to do. And they pursue. So now, as the 9th verse, and the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses of and the chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen and his army overtook them and camped by the sea besides Pyrot, in front of Baal Zephon. All right, they feeling secure. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord, and they said, Moses, because there was no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us to bring us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we spoke unto thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it is better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. Most people, before I get into the 13th verse, most people don't talk about where they want to die. Most people don't. And they say, is it enough? It's not enough graves in Egypt. Is that sarcastic or real? Because we know pyramids took up a lot of space, but that's a question that people like us from New York can identify with, because most times when you go to funerals, most people getting buried in Jersey, out there in another state, or way outside the city limits of New York into Long Island somewhere, so sometimes, when you look at the graveyards, you see it on tombstones, you say, okay, you see how big the graveyards is, and you say, well, how many bodies go up in there? How long that grave been around? And you look at some of the dates on them. So, we could identify where you have a shortage of burial, but yet the grave is never filled up, forever. But that's another story. And they told Moses to leave us alone. We don't read that, where it said, leave us alone. But when we get to the 13th verse, Moses say, and Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For whereas you have seen the Egyptians today, you shall see them again no more forever. All right. Before I go to the, in the 14th verse it says, the Lord will fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Now, that's good leadership. And sometimes good leadership, when people is panicking, and traditionally they say they had 4 opinions. I can't see 600,000 men of war with only 4 opinions, 4 viewpoints. Because I've been in a lot of Israelite meetings, and we could have 10 people in the meeting, and we have about 30 or 50 viewpoints in that same meeting with just 10 people in that meeting, different, viewpoints. So when they, but basically, according to tradition, they say 4 main viewpoints, and I share those, which is, some say, let's go commit suicide, jump into the sea. Some would say, all right, let's turn back and fight. Others will say, all right, let's go back and surrender. And then some will say, let's pray, because this thing's getting dire. And Moses answered all those 4 views by saying, stand still. That's supposed to suffice. And then he answered every one of their questions, with the statement that he just made. And so you could, examine the statement that he made from the scenarios I gave you and see which one will apply to which statement. And so Moses in the 15th verse, and then the Lord said to Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward, and lift up thy rod and stretch out thy hand over the sea and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go into the midst of the sea on dry ground. And behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall go in after them, and I will get me on upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, upon his chariots and upon his horsemen, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me on upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. All right. In the 19th verse, and the angel of the Lord, an angel of God, who went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud removed from before them and stood behind them, and it became the camp of Egypt, and it came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel, and there was the cloud and the darkness here, yet gave it light by night there, and one came not near the other all night. So now, if I go to the 21st verse, the cloud wound up doing 2 things at one time. One side was light, one side was darkness. I guess you could figure out which one was dark and which one needed the light. So you could discuss that and go back, because, it don't make it clear here, but because pretty much use deductive reasoning here. So, but you could bear some discussions and on both views on that, and that's what I like about going through the Tanakh and highlighting certain things, because you have the chance and the opportunity to think things out and rehash things and examine things and dialogue, with certain things that's written out in the text that's not really clear straight out. But one of the things that we find here is that the Creator, I said he wanted to still get honor upon Pharaoh, all right, and tell the children of Israel to go forward into the sea. Now, he told them to move forward. So none of the other options I came up with was an option for God. Praying wasn't even the option. It's a time to pray, and it's a time to just move. And that time, prayer was not even a good option, in that time. And the thing is that what we find here is that Moses he felt the same. He felt desperate because of the people too, because he's leading these people into a situation. So now he telling them to be cool. Y'all be cool, be cool. Then he, so to speak, I'm just exaggerating a little bit, but so to speak, wipe his face and say, Lord, and he crying out. But he's not crying out in front of the people. Leaders sometimes got to have the poker face when things look desperate. And the people have valid reasons for the situation, how it appears. You as a leader got to maintain a cool and civil head, in that sense. And sometimes the prophets, when they're trying to tell us some things that, that God don't like, and the people, sneering and coming at him, God said, you got to look tough. You got to act like, things is, you got this. So Moses, but we find that Moses did that same thing. But what was in him was he had a serious concern, and God addressed the concern and said, look, I don't even know why you even crying. You just told them not to, do this and that and the other. So now tell the people to move forward into the sea in that direction, not against them. And I'm telling them to go that way, and the path ain't there yet. And I'm telling them to go that way, and I'm telling Moses that them guys gonna come behind you. Now you can't run with your cattle and your flocks. You can't run with that, and you got your children and old folks and all the loot you got. How fast can you go across? And you're talking about 3.5 million people approximately. How fast can you get there? And then how can you sleep that night? You're going to stay up. You say, this ain't no time for sleeping either. So when we look at all that, going forward. But then let's go further. Let's go a little bit further. Excuse me. And it said, in 24th verse, and Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all the night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the 22nd verse, it said, and the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea. All Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass in the morning watch that the Lord looked forth upon the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of cloud, and discomfited the host of the Egyptians. And he took off their chariot wheels and made them to drive heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. Now, that's really profound, because when we pay close attention, when they tell you that, and it came to pass, and I like to read that one more time and see if you pick up what what I see. In the morning watch, that the Lord looked forth upon the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of cloud, and discomfited the host of the Egyptians. Now, that verse there, did his face actually, did they see some kind of image of God? When Moses wanted to see the face of God, he said, no man should see my face and live. So what did the Egyptians see that they realized it was God? And they made that statement, but they can't say what God's face looked like or whatever they saw. They can't define what they saw, but they know it was God. And they know that this image of whatever they saw was for the children of Israel and fighting against them, and so they realized that they didn't have to worry about the Israelites. It was now they realized it was the God of Israel that fight against them. And it's, and they said, let us flee from the face of Israel, but the Lord fighteth for them. All right, now in the 26th verse, and the Lord said to Moses, stretch out thy hand over the sea, that the waters may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength. When the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen, even all the hosts of Pharaoh that went in after them into the sea. There remained not so much as one of them, but the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore, and Israel saw the great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. So I wanted to read that part there because one of the things that we find here that's really really unique is that one is some views, and I hold the view from my teachings that I come up under that Pharaoh didn't die, that, and it said the host of Pharaoh and his chariots, so things that belong to Pharaoh under Pharaoh's authority, but Pharaoh himself didn't die. Now in the Psalms, one of the Psalms, I forget which song off the top of my head, maybe 105, 104, something like that, 103. It describes Pharaoh going down. But here in the text right here, in Exodus, it lets you know clearly that Pharaoh didn't go in, and it would pretty much defeat the purpose because somebody got to come back to tell the story. And learn from this episode here. So what it was is his servants went in, to go after that. And they had to be hard-hearted to travel behind somebody when you see water up on both sides. Now, later on, and you find, when we talk about the sea roaring and the rivers clapping in the Psalms, when we talk about that, and I think in the 99th Psalm, years later, you find that when Joshua and them was going to cross the Jordan, which is a river, it stood up on one side. It was a wall on one side, only, and they came across. Whereas on the Yam Suf, it was a wall on both sides. So, you could say, well, Joshua was just half as strong as Moses, whatever the case is. But nevertheless, the psalm reflects those giving praises, and performing the will of the Creator, at that time. So then, 15th chapter, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of things in 15th chapter. It said, then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spoke, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and his rider have he thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will glorify him. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. All right. It said, Pharaoh's chariots and his host hath he cast in the sea, and his chosen captains are sunk in the Red Sea, but it's Yam Suf. All right, so it says Pharaoh's chariots, and it makes it clear there. All right, so now, when we get to that point, we know this chapter of the psalm is read with a different trope. Those that it's like a melody or a beat. So it's made with a different trope, and it's written in Hebrew like bricks. A brick and a half, a whole brick and a half a brick, or a whole brick over half a brick. So that song is written like that, and because we was actually brick makers in Egypt, and so was when we look at the Song of the Boar, it's written like that. And have a unique melody. I'm not going to elaborate this, but one thing I would say about this particular song here, that this song, Shir Hayam, the Song of the Sea, 15th chapter, is read every single day, during the week in morning service, the Shir Hayam. That's how powerful it is. And this is what Moses saying, and we don't know how it was. Was it a call response, or everybody was in tune and knew what the words were as Moses knew the words? So we're not sure. But when we get to Miriam, she come out, she led the women with tambourines, and they began to sing, which is more organized. So she stepped it up a little bit with the women. And you say, well, wow, how did they know to bring tambourines? How do they know? Well, we're going to praise God. See, and one thing I did say in passing, before I go into the next portion of this here, so I'm going to try to finish it out, is that when we say, Hallelujah, which is praise itself, it's different from, Hodu, which is like thanks. And the thing is, what's the difference? You say, when you praise him, you're thanking him. If you're thanking him, you're praising him. Well, one, when we read the Psalms, when we look at the Psalms, and a lot of Psalms is, Hallel. We got Hallel Psalms, which we say at certain times, the Rosh Chodesh, the Shalosh Regalim, stuff like that. We say those particular Psalms, Hallel Psalms, which is praise. And thanks, you have a lot of Psalms where we say thanks. One of the Psalms we started with thanks in the morning prayer. But when we look at it, is that when you, in general, I'm just gonna make it simple, and in general, but you can have other nuances concerning the interpretation I share with you. Is that the Hallel is praise in general. What happened when you look around in nature and whatever the case is, and you're praising God for the wonders that you see. Whereas, Hodu is what actually, thanks is what you got personally, what he did for you personally. So one is, you recognize and you praise him because you see the sun, you see the, the warmth, you see the, you can breathe the air, you got the water, you got the produce. Well, Hodu is what he might have did for you in your life. So that's one of the general differences. Like I said, everything you could discuss further with your teachers, but I want to go into the and now that so you got the first also praise dancing. So when you talk about people, when you think about the people in the other ways of life, you had a praise dance going on with music, with singing, and organized by Miriam. So now you have this area going on with that. And also what is unique is that we're introduced to Miriam, at this time, and when we introduced to him, Miriam, and it says that in the 20th verse of that same 15th chapter, and Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand. Well, why they say the sister of Aaron, not the sister of Aaron and Moses? That's something to think about and something to discuss, because they related. So why refer to her as the sister of Aaron? And she's introduced for the first time, and she's older than them. So she's introduced, for the first time. And yet we read about a sister standing by the bank to see what become of her brother with no name. That's interesting. But that's something, to further, think about as you go forward. And so now in the 22nd verse, and Moses led them onward from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. All right, one thing I like to bring out, Shur, we heard about that word before too. And I just want to bring out a couple of things since we heard about that word before. When we talk about the area of Shur, Hagar, when she was, left, from fleeing in Genesis, she was headed that direction because what? She was an Egyptian. So she was headed back home. We're still in the territory of Egypt. But when we come out, crossing that Yam Suf, what they call the Red Sea, we know when we see the bodies, then we got closure that those guys are not going to follow us anymore. And it was washed up as a witness. And then one of the things is too, it's always a controversy. It's a talk. Concerning a commentary. Why didn't they just stay in this water? Why weren't they eaten up by the creatures of the water? Why were their bodies tossed on land? And there's several reasons, but one of the reasons they did allow Joseph to be buried and Jacob to be buried where he needed to be. So those are some of the things, so it's like the Creator also shows measure for measure. Since there's a man is made from the dust of the ground, dust thou art, dust thou shalt return. And there's other, versions of commentaries in reference to that area there. I just wanted to point out some of the things there. So, and 3 days without water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord. And the Lord showed him a tree, and he cast it in the water, and the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statue in the audience, and there he proved them. And he said, if thou wilt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his eyes, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases upon thee, which I have put upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. All right. So now, this is something that was being brought out by Moses, and he's speaking, almost, like he was God himself in that sense. But one of the things when we look at this area here is that another marvel. What person, very few people, and especially children, could go 3 days without water. Now you go that long without water. Very few people could actually travel that far without water. So some would say, well, they traveled the distance of 3 days, and they was thirsty there. But if you want to take it the other way, then that would be a miracle that they lasted 3 days, that they actually went 3 days, period, in actual days, and then didn't have any water. That's a miracle in itself. Most of us that fast on Yom Kippur, the first thing that hits you is thirst. You don't be hungry right away. You get the dry mouth and everything like that. And every time you swallow, you're looking for a wet spot to swallow, And so that's the first thing that gets you. But and the Creator, gave them water. Put a tree in and said, "What kind of tree?" The Creator showed them the tree. We don't know the name of the tree, but whatever tree he threw in there made the water sweet. And you say, "Wow," And you say, when I think about sweet water, I think about lemonade, all that kind of stuff, But whatever it was sweet water. And it goes on to say further in 27th verse, and it came to Elam where the 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. So round numbers, because I said it was 70 palm trees. 12 springs is 1 foot per tribe, so that's even. 70, that means somebody gonna have to worry about, if it's only 70, 2 tribes gonna get 5 and 5. It's almost like the 70 elders, but then you read about 2 elders that didn't come out amongst the 70 that was called. So, we use round numbers here. And also when the Pentateuch was translated, one of the Ptolemies, we had it translated into Hebrew, and the tradition is they say 70 elders. That's why they got the Septuagint for 70 elders, a round number. But they say it was 6 per tribe, in that area there. All right. So that make it, 72. All right. And then we go on about the journey. Now, this is where I'm going to finish off at the manna, because there's a lot of interesting things about the manna that I want to speak on. And then next week, next time, I'll finish on the 17th chapter. So I want to finish up this particular 16th chapter and speak about the manna, so to speak, which is a very interesting topic in itself. And it said, and they took their journey from Elam, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after they departed out of the land of Egypt. That's 30 days already. And they still haven't got to where they need to get to. 30 days. That's a moment. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them, would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole congregation with hunger. Now, it's so ironic that, mind you now, then they leave with livestock, then they have much cattle, and it takes a great deal of cattle. And now you saying you're hungry, all right? And you had dough on your back. So you kind of wonder, what's the problem here? What you saving this livestock for? Was you a vegetarian before? You couldn't have been a vegetarian long, because you had to just observe the Pesach, so you ate meat that day. Yeah. So it's not strange for you to slaughter, a lamb. It's not strange for you to slaughter that. But then you say, well, how long are we going to sit? Because we can't waste too much meat now. Would it be the same process when we was back in Egypt and Goshen, where we got to eat it fast and burn the rest of it, and we waste a lot of our meat up? All these scenarios could come up at this point in time, because the last big banquet we had was anything left over we had to burn up, and we had to cook it a certain way. I don't want my meat cooked like that all the time. I might want it sauteed, simmered, whatever the case is. So there's a lot of things you could bring out and discuss in reference to this particular area here when they talk about they're hungry, all right? And they talk about the flesh pots to the full. We did eat bread, and so bread and meat we ate to the full. All right. So now we didn't get it, free, because they didn't want to give us straw. So naturally, you're gonna feed your workers just enough. Slaves in this country was fed just enough to go to work. That's it. Not to be lavish upon and everything. That's why a lot of us, people of color, black folks in this country, was eating chitlins, stuff that they didn't want. Eating collard greens and cabbage, which they thought was just wild shrubs. So we was eating stuff like that. So, to survive. So here it is, eating pigtails and all that stuff, because we trying to survive. So now we get in the area of the fourth verse rather of the 16th chapter, which is I hope to share some really insightful information concerning this. Then said the Lord unto Moses, behold, I will cause it to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my way or walk in my law or not. All right. So now we find out, that lema'an is the word that is used, later on to prove them, whether they're gonna walk in that way. So it's a test, So do God really need a test, or for you to see what the results of your actions are going to be? And Now we're going to talk about bread. And I'm going to read all this through, and then I'm going to talk about it because there's a lot to talk about. And it says, and it's come to pass on the 6th day that ye shall prepare that which ye bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. And Moses and Aaron said unto all the children of Israel, at evening, then ye shall know that the Lord hath brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning, then ye shall see the glory of the Lord. For that he had heard your murmurings against the Lord, and what are we, that you murmur against us? And Moses said, this shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, for that the Lord heareth your murmuring, which ye murmur against him. And what are we, you murmuring? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. And Moses said unto Aaron, say unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmuring. Now, when you murmur, that means you don't want to be understood, but you're grumbling. You got a beef, but you're grumbling. Like children, sometimes you punish them, and you say you got to get the horns on him. What you trying to say? I ain't say nothing. I ain't say nothing. But here it is. This way we were. 10th verse. And it came to pass as Aaron spoke unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked towards the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurs of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, at dusk you shall eat flesh, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God. And it came to pass at evening that the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning they were a layer of dew round about the camp. And when the layer of dew was going up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness, a fine scale-like thing, fine as the hoarfrost, on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, what is it? And they knew not what it was. And Moses said unto them, it is bread which the Lord had given you to eat. And this is the thing which the Lord had commanded. Gather ye every man according to his eating, and omer a head according to the number of your persons shall you take it, every man for them that are in his tent. All right. Now let me stop at the 17th before I go to the 17th verse. One of the interesting things is that it said it's gonna rain down bread. One, we didn't see it raining down. What we supposed to do is stand, we're supposed to stand outside when the rain come, or this particular thing come down, and then hold a bucket out and catch it. Nope, we didn't do it like that. And then why call it bread? And if God gonna rain down something, why not wheat? You know what I mean? We know what to do with wheat, but and some of us had to process this stuff too. Some could eat it raw. Some had to go through a little processing, and then also you had to go out and gather it, not just catch it, gather it. And then as we get further and discuss this here, we're told that we only allowed to gather so much. The quail, we had no quantity about what we should gather. Ain't that something? With the meat, it wasn't a quantity, a qualifying limit on the meat, but it was a qualifying limit on the manna. And then they say it's going to rain down from heaven. So if it's raining down in heaven, we're supposed to be dropping on our tents. And you find that it dropped on the grass outside. You say grass, and it said, but it had a dew. So now we have a prayer for rain, but we might say, a blessing for dew, but it's based on a prayer for dew. Rain is based on your actions in the land. And, when we're praying for rain, it's because you get the rain, early rain and latter rain, because of your demeanor. But so now, when you got bread coming down, and they call it bread, lechem, and you say it's not the lechem that you have, and it's raining down, and it's coming up on the dew, and you told you're only allowed to get a limited amount. And what's even interesting, who goes shopping just for a day's meal every single day? Most people have pantries. Most people stock up on some things. So now you're told to be regimental with a discipline that you only going to get so much per day. You're not allowed to stock up on the manna. And then since you got rules of it, it tell you how much you allow per person a day. So when we look at all these different rules concerning the manna, the test is, and the laws that we're talking about here is before Mount Torah, before the giving of the law, thou shalt and thou shalt nots and all the other stuff. The law that you're going to say, the Torah they're going to be talking about, and they talk about the Torah and the instructions, is concerning the manna itself, which we call manna later. And one of the things, you can read it all the way through, but I'm not going to read it all the way through. I just want to highlight some things in this area here, because I'm going to pick up in 17 next week to conclude. But one of the things about the manna is that, one, you told how much. Two, you told you got to go out and get it. You got to gather it. And three, you're not allowed to save it and leave any for the morning. So you got to depend on it daily. And also you have a time limit, because when the sun waxes hot, it's gone. So you got a time limit. They go out there and get busy. And it's basically, it was the man's job to do that. Basically it was the man's job to go out and get that. So now, when we look at all those different areas concerning the manna, and then we was told, some people went out, got more than the omer, because maybe they didn't know how to measure. Some got less and said, look, I don't want to, be too greedy. The Creator told me to, take an omer. I'm going to show that I can live less, go less than that. Well, we're not supposed to add or diminish aught from the law. So we're not supposed to add to the omer, and not supposed to get less than the omer. And yet, it tell you, one of the miracles is those that gathered less had the same amount of an omer, and those that gathered more only had an omer. So that means even when we try to violate a direct command, the Creator is saying this is different from the wheat you grow up with, the wheat that you will grow. We're told also when we harvest our crops that we're supposed to leave the corners of the field for the poor. When it comes to the manna, we gather for everybody, period. And they have the same exact amount. So suppose I don't eat as much as you. That doesn't matter. When you had an omer, you're going to eat the omer. You're going to deal with that omer. And then when it came to the Shabbat day, you're supposed to gather 2 loaves. I mean, two twice as much, 2 omers. And it said some try to save it. So you got food that you got to use up and you can't save. So no storage. And it said those that try to save it, it bred worms and stank. So that means that they didn't trust the Creator to provide. They got what they had and they said, look, just in case, because this ain't normal, and they call it bread. I don't even know what it is. And I got to take it through some process. And yet I said, well, let me just save a little bit. And it said, you're supposed to eat it and not save it. You're supposed to use it up for that day. And then it said on the 7th day, 6th day, gathered twice as much, and it didn't stink or rot. And also it said it will be none out on the seventh day, because the Shabbat. Don't even leave your tent. But some people went out there looking for it anyway, and the Creator, said, "How long these people not hearken?" And that was just command concerning a food product. One food product. We wasn't told all that parameters concerning the quail, but we was told that concerning this particular product here, with the Omer. And also, we know later on, I'm going to read this last little part in that particular portion, at the 16th verse, because I don't want to leave that out. All right, so I think I'll pick it up from the 32nd verse in the 16th chapter, and I will end there, at the end of that 16th chapter. And Moses said, "This is the thing which the Lord had commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, that they may see the bread wherewith I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt." And Moses said unto Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it up before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations, as the Lord had commanded Moses." So Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel did eat the manna 40 years until they came into the land inhabited. They did eat the manna until they came into the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is a 10th part of an ephah. Now, I want to point out this last point before I, close, and I'll finish the 17th, next time. What is interesting is that we got to double. I'm gonna bring a couple points before on this matter. One, most people used to 3 meals a day. So, and those that follow tradition, rabbinic tradition, they have what you call a statutes, which is a third meal. And the third meal they usually have towards the afternoon mincha service. They have that meal. So, but you actually, your Shabbat meal is, when you got the manna on the 6th day, right? That omer, one is for the morning because you're picking up in the morning. You ate that, so you're eating. So what you're actually eating is that when you picked up the manna that day, you already had, eaten that particular manna for that morning. All right, and the evening when you eat the omer, you still eating from the manna of the 6th day. You're only eating from the 6th day. That extra portion, the Shabbat meal is actually that morning, but most of the day, because of the way we, rabbinically trained and stuff like that, we eat. You say, well, this is Shabbat meal, and so we're eating the Shabbat meal, which is, you do eat that 6th day portion on Shabbat, but that's not the omer for Shabbat. The omer for Shabbat, you don't break into that until that morning, which is the part of that double portion. And then when the Shabbat is going out, then you fixing and eating the last part of that manna because you only pick it up in the morning. So the statutes, so rabbinically, for those that follow that particular custom, is that they tell you on that third meal, eat very, very little, because you technically is really supposed to emulate what the manna was and eat that meal after sundown. When you go home, that is actually, reminiscent of the manna that you had in the wilderness. And another thing that's interesting that's brought out in this particular portion here is that when we talk about we're hinted at, we don't have the tabernacle yet. So where he gonna put this here manna? So that means that he ain't pick it up. So we got a law that's gonna take a year later, at least a year later. Well, a little less than a year, because the tabernacle was erected the Rosh Chodesh, the next year, the second year. So basically 11 months. So it's going to be 11 months before Aharon, the high priest, when he was designated as a high priest, we don't have a designated high priest yet. You know, before he able to get that omer and collect that omer and put it before the ark, because we haven't built the ark. We haven't built the tabernacle. And they tell you right here where it's supposed to be. Last point I want to bring out in this area is that it's already said, look here, y'all gonna be there 40 years. And we haven't did 1 year yet. So when you read the 16th chapter and close out in the 16th chapter, it said, you're going to see that you've been fed for 40 years. Moses telling them that 40 years in the wilderness, where did this come from? You know, he didn't send no representatives over there. Nobody crossed over and challenged what the land and come back with a bad report. We don't have the tabernacle established yet. So when we look at this here, it's like, be careful. So with that, I hope you got some of what I said, any mistakes from my own, and I'll conclude it for, the rest of it from the 17th chapter and going into the next one, Yithro. Next week is Hashem. From a location up north.
Hey, Prince, do you have a minute?
Yes.
I have a question in terms of, it's a question that was brought to me last Shabbat night talk, so I want your insight on it. So it was brought up to me. It was someone that was listening. They said they grew up under Ashkenazi tradition, and that the usage of the name of the Creator wasn't, the name of the Creator wasn't used because they were listening to the music that we were playing, and they heard the name of the Creator in in some of the songs. So my question to you is, where does that tradition come from, and is it prohibited for us to use the name? Is there anywhere in Torah where it's prohibited for us to use the name of the Creator in terms of, singing a song or any of those things?
Okay. Now, I grew up with tradition. We didn't use it either, but it's not a violation in the Tanakh itself. It's a rabbinic violation. But you could extrapolate it from a pasuk or a verse in the Tanakh. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. So when you use something too frivolously, then it loses its real, worth. It's like if you see gold all over the place and, walk down the street and then gold doesn't really have no value anymore, like that. So, and also out of respect for your parents, if you're introducing your parent to somebody, say, oh, my parent named Chief Uzziel, Ben Levi, that's my father's name. All right. But, I don't call him, Chief Uzziel Ben Levi. I say Abba, like that, because out of respect, but other people will have to call you like, surname and everything like that out of respect. But so the thing was also historically, because we know that it's not to use it regular. After the Babylonian captivity and siege, because most people think of let me put this on. I forgot I didn't turn on the thing. After the siege, the Babylonian siege, in the captivity, most people in the ancient world say, "My God beat your God." Just like we see a Baal Zephon, we've circled up in the Baal Zephon area like that, So, and we always say, well, our God sold us, gave rid of us, because of our sins. So from that point on, so people won't thrash our God, we stopped using it. And it was, and it's one a good example is about the sacredness of the name, and even though they used it, is when the Sennacherib of the Assyrian had sent that letter to King Hezekiah. And he took it before the altar because it had God's name on it. So look, this letter must be for you because they put your name down on there. I mean, I'm nobody. And and he went to sleep. And then we know about an angel going up there and taking care of some business, So the thing was that there's nothing in the scripture that say you cannot use the name, but you got to be careful about using it vainly in that sense, in that area there. So traditionally, most of us don't use it, but if things get bad enough, you're going to use it. And another example is when I think Jehoshaphat, when he dressed up in his kingly royal, helping out his father-in-law in a battle. And they said, things got kind of hard, because his father-in-law came incognito, and he out there, looking royal. And the guys started, coming at him real tight. And they said he cried out. He had to cry out the name of the Creator. And so when we told to praise His name, if we told to praise His name, it's not an issue. But it was like a tradition that's passed down later on, but not in the Tanakh. So, and I always try to explain that to people. And since I grew up with tradition, not using it as much, but I'm not the one where I'll say, well, if I'm trying to explain it, show pronunciation and teaching, and even then you could teach, the 4-letter tetragrammaton. So that's all it is. It's just a thing of respect, not using it as much. Not that you find it in Tanakh that say you cannot use it.
Hallelujah. Yeah, because I I was looking at Deuteronomy 32 when the Most High God told Moses to write a song.
Yeah.
And to teach it to the children of Israel, and in the song, the actual name of the Creator is replete. So I'm like, there must be, a usage of the name, or there must be an allowance of being able to use the name, because Moses
said straight up in the song,
yeah,
y'all stop doing what you're doing. I'm just paraphrasing because I'm going to proclaim the name of the Lord. So, he says that in the 32nd song, and the lyrics came from God, and it come from Moses.
Right. Hallelujah. So yeah, that I just wanted to hear it. I want them to hear it from one of my teachers, because sometimes you get the people have their doubts, but I just wanted to hear from my teacher, and that's coming from us coming up in an offshoot of Bennett. Well, me coming up in an offshoot of Bennett King. We always used the Supreme Intelligence. Some people use the word Father, the Creator, the Most High. We use those names a lot, which a lot of us still use a lot. But a lot of the songs that were written are written with the name of the Most High in it. So that's why you will hear us when we're singing, we use the name of the Most High, because we're praising Him. So that's it. Torah, Nasik, I'm probably going to ask you some questions, being that our 10th year anniversary is coming up. We're probably going to do a brief history of how we started and where we whence we come from, and you're part of that history whence we come from. So maybe in the next couple of weeks. May, right? No, that's this month, the end of this month.
Oh, this month?
Yeah, February 28th was our first day at D.C.B.
Okay, well, I'm gonna try and stay in New York that long. But
No. But I'll talk to you, and then I'll share it with the people.
Okay, I'll be up there this weekend coming, and the next weekend. I don't know, it's warm. It's 80 degrees down here.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Torah about Nasik. May the Most High God bless you. And may the Most High God bless each and every one of you. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And to hit the notification bell so that every time we upload a new video, you will be notified. Shalom, shalom, family. May the Most High God bless you. And may you have a good Shabbat rest. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Amen.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment,